Every week on the Totally Advertising podcast, we meet with founders, CEOs, writers, and directors to talk about the creative choices that have made the biggest impact on their brands. And this isn't just any podcast because
it's totally advertising.
I'm Dallin Koski.
And I'm Damian Dayton.
It's totally rad. It's totally advertising.
And welcome to the Totally Advertising podcast. I'm the creative guy, Damian Dayton.
And I'm the performance guy, Dallin Koski.
And every week, we take a look at advertising performance. We take a look at where creative and performance meet, and we review some of the best commercials and worst commercials out there. We talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Today, we're joined by a good guest, Eric Satz from Alto IRA. Eric, we're so excited to have you on today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Damon. I mean, I think we have to wait for the good, the bad, or the ugly in terms of the guests until the end, but I'll take the good for now.
You're easier on the camera than my face is, so we're in pretty good shape. For our listening audience that aren't familiar with Alto IRA, why don't you tell us what Alto IRA is, and more specifically, what Alto Crypto IRA is?
Sure. So back in 2018, we launched Alto to make it easy for individual investors to access their retirement savings and invest in alternative assets. Things like private equity, venture capital, real estate, artwork, other types of collectibles, and also crypto today. And so specifically, if you want to talk about the crypto IRA, we have a fully integrated platform in partnership with Coinbase. And so we offer 250 plus crypto assets available for investment. And we've been doing that since 2019. In total today, we have just under $2 billion in assets under custody, approximately 700 million of which is crypto.
And I think the amazing thing about what you guys are doing, it's been so fascinating to talk. When we first sat down to talk about doing an ad together, Bitcoin was about $60,000 a coin. When we flew out to meet with you the first time, it was $80,000. By the end of that meeting, it was $90,000 a coin. And now we're above $100,000 a coin. And a lot of investors don't understand. They understand crypto, but they don't understand that when they sell it, they have to pay a huge amount of capital gains unless they do some smart things that you guys do. So could you tell us a little bit about those things that they can do when they invest with crypto?
Absolutely. I mean, talk about a slow pitch, to take a big swing at. The great thing about using retirement money is that it's tax advantaged. And so whether you're investing in any asset out of a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. In the case of a traditional IRA, you're deferring taxes until you take distributions at retirement age. In the case of a Roth IRA, you're paying your taxes today before your dollars go into that account, such that you're doing tax-free withdrawals at the time of retirement. And so you just talked about it. Crypto moves so quickly, right? And it's been moving so quickly, and I think it's going to move quickly for the next probably 4 or 5 years. And if you buy low and sell high, you have tax consequences, and you owe Uncle Sam money. Unless, of course, you're doing it within the construct of a tax-advantaged account, like an IRA account, a retirement account. And that is a huge bonus for our users, because you can buy and sell constantly without having to try and keep a capital gains and loss ledger that you're going to have to figure out at the, kind of Morse code at the end of the year. It's just simpler to know that you don't owe any taxes.
I have a Roth IRA managed by Alto Crypto IRA. I can pay my taxes as I buy crypto for the first time, and then never have to, it can go up and down and do anything in the world, and I don't have to pay taxes on it again. And I take it out tax-free when I retire, and all those gains I get to keep. I don't have to give anything to Uncle Sam or Papa Sam or any of his.
So that's really close, and I just want to be specific about the fact that when you put money into a Roth IRA account, those are after-tax dollars. So no matter what it is you invest in, at the time of distribution, your distributions are tax-free, right? So you know, whether you're investing in crypto or otherwise, it's the act of putting the money, it's the act of contributing dollars to the Roth IRA account. That's the after-tax component, such that all of your investment gains are then tax-free until time of distribution.
So, yeah. So essentially, you get to kind of shield it from all the dollars go up and the dollars go down, and Uncle Sam doesn't care because you've already paid your taxes on it. I think a lot of people just think, oh, if I get a Roth IRA, I can only use that on mutual funds. I can only use that on taxes. But you're offering it on more self-directed options. One of the primary that we've worked on together is crypto, but you guys have some other offerings as well, I understand.
We do, and you know, so again, whether it's private equity, venture capital, real estate, artwork, or crypto, the thing that we do at Alto is we enable individuals to self-direct their investments. And I think the thing that's important to remember is that if you're using a retirement account with one of the major brokerages like Fidelity or Schwab, you're going to be limited to what they have approved for you, as opposed to the world is your oyster, which is what we enable at Alto when you set up your self-directed IRA account with us. And I think for those at home who aren't so familiar with IRA accounts and what the process is, it's also important to know and understand that you can have an unlimited number of IRA accounts. And what you can do, again, on an unlimited basis each year, is transfer funds between those accounts. Where limitations come into play is when you're rolling over a 401k to an IRA. That you can do once a year. And what most people don't understand is that the amount of money in IRA accounts, give or take $14 trillion, is significantly greater than the total sum of dollars that live in 401k accounts, which is kind of between $8 and $9 trillion. And it's somewhat counterintuitive, and people don't really understand it until they think about the fact that all of us tend to work for an employer for shorter and shorter periods of time. And when you then go to the next employer, you have the ability to roll that 401k into an IRA so that you can, again, invest in whatever it is that you'd really like to be investing in. And so over time, IRA accounts in aggregate surpass 401k accounts in terms of total dollars, and they've been growing at a faster rate than 401k accounts. And so that's why Alto is focused on the IRA segment as opposed to the 401k segment.
Well, let's get right into one of our exercises. I've sent you guys a link. Actually, I need to send it to. I've sent you a link. We're going to watch. The Super Bowl ads are hot right now. We're going to watch an old Super Bowl ad that was recommended to us, and then we're just going to talk about first impressions. So we'll cut to that right now.
Sir, you got Bud Light?
Back there.
Bud Light made a seltzer?
Wait, Bud Light made a seltzer?
I wonder what it tastes like.
Only one way to find out.
What are the taste buds saying?
Tastes great. No Bud Light, just hard seltzer with a hint of fruit flavor.
Light and refreshing. It says light and refreshing.
Let's get that instead.
Wait. Post Malone doesn't drink seltzer. We drink Bud Light. Everybody knows that.
Why not try something new? Bud Light. Seltzer.
Bud Light.
Seltzer.
Bud Light.
Well, season 1 was much better than season 2.
Guys, Guys, we're incredibly rich. Let's get both.
I'll get both. Got any pretzels?
Bud Light Seltzer. Unquestionably good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to ask, we felt like there was a lot of kind of Super Bowl flops this year, some that weren't as great. This was recommended to us by a viewer, a friend of the show, Chris. Thank you for sharing the ad with us, Chris. Couple fun things about the ad. But first of all, first impressions. Love it or hate it?
I loved it. It was absolutely super. Yeah, they nailed it.
Yeah, I agree. It was a great ad.
I'm not a beer drinker, nor a seltzer drinker, but I had a lot of fun watching it. I think it's a great ad. I've always said, there's legislation that says that you cannot be drinking alcohol during an alcohol commercial. And I think they should switch that and mandate that if you're making an alcohol commercial, everybody on the crew should be legally drunk. But
that's a hot take, Damien. That's a hot take. Yeah.
It's a warm, maybe a tepid take. Now here's my 4 questions I ask about every ad. Who's the ad for? So I'm going to just grill you, Eric. Who was the ad? What was the product?
It was Bud Light, and it's Bud Light or Bud Light Seltzer.
I think that is interesting, though. They were introducing a new product. Your first recollection was the traditional product. They were trying to sell seltzer, but your first recollection is seltzer. What does the product do, and how is it different?
But I think it's also I think this is right, by the way. I think they're playing on the nostalgia of tastes great, less filling.
Interesting. I think that was one of the hotter campaigns of the 80s and 90s. I remember being at a local amusement park on one of those giant boats that swings back and forth, and we'd go up one side and we'd yell, "Taste great," and we'd go up the other side and they'd say less filling.
I have to ask, right? That was Bud Light, right? Tastes great, less filling, right? And I think it had that same cadence to it. Bud Light, seltzer, Bud Light, seltzer, and it had that back and forth, not just from an audio perspective or audible perspective, but also the swing of the arm. Right? They're swinging the arm and he's getting jerked back and forth from one side of the aisle to the other. And I love the commercial.
Do you think what did it tell you about the product that was new or different than the Bud Light you already know?
So it was talking about the seltzer in terms of fruity and some other stuff. And by the way, so I do drink alcohol. I'm 100% not interested in seltzer. And I'm 100% not interested in Bud Light. But the comedy of the ad itself, I thought was amazing. And also was very easy to remember who this ad was for. You and I have spoken in the past about who is that ad for? Really, really hard to remember sometimes. Especially, by the way, in insurance. And I'm going to say something a little bit different than what you may expect, which is State Farm versus Allstate. Both have very, I think now iconic ads. But I still have a hard time remembering, was that State Farm or was that Allstate? I know it's for one of them, and I know it's insurance.
You add in the trifecta Farmers. Now you've got State is in 2 of them, Farm is in 2 of them, and I'm not quite sure who's who sometimes.
But that's the interesting thing about that, by the way, and we both know that. Yeah, I watch ads. I don't make them. Farmers' ad approach is so distinguishable for me relative to, because the Allstate and the State Farm, it's sports, right? And I don't remember whoever the the guy who's like mayhem. Like, I can't tell you, is he Allstate or State Farm? Like, I don't.
It's like, it's so fun. People are like, oh, I love the Mayhem guy. So many clients tell us like, oh, I love the Mayhem guy.
Yeah.
We should get a guy like the Mayhem guy. And I'm like, who's he representing? Now I know,
Right.
but I'm not going to give them more. That's their job to make you remember their brand.
And
they haven't done it.
I'm sitting here telling you, I can't tell you whether he's Allstate or State Farm. And I think he's Allstate, but I don't know. Yeah, so I'm getting the head shake. Yeah, you see, he's Allstate. But I have a hard time remembering, as opposed to with farmers, like very, very unique, I think, approach to, when stuff goes wrong, like the actual crazy stuff that went wrong and that was insured. Like that's, a whole nother, that's pretty cool, I think.
The other thing that makes we're off on a tangent, which is I love. I think we could just call our podcast the Tangent Podcast. But
Sure.
I think that the other thing about farmers is I think there's a lost art to jingles. Mm-hmm. At the end of the podcast,
we are farmers.
Bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 bum.
Yep, I agree with you.
Like they've got something that everybody that has the same name, they've got one thing, they've got one earworm that lives in my brain rent free. We say that is the most valuable piece of advertising real estate. Now, the other thing though among insurance is I can't tell you the difference in their service. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you which one I'd want to buy, but I do think, oh, they're one of the big threes. I should probably get an estimate from one of those three and I'll maybe start off with farmers because I'll remember them first, and for insurance, oftentimes that's what they need. They're often the target of my ire, like the Progressive and the Liberty Mutual, because they oversaturate and I need a break and they don't tell me anything new. They don't offer me anything of value. And so you really better entertain me. If you're not offering me anything of value in your commercial, you really better entertain me.
Yeah. Well, I was thoroughly entertained by Bud Light and Bud Light Seltzer.
Not interested in seltzer, not interested in Bud Light. You leave the video, you're like, okay, I might try that. Like, did it wiggle that needle at all for you?
No, and I think it's because of the genre, right? Like if I'm gonna drink beer, I want it to it's probably going to be a dark beer and it's going to be heavier and it's going to have really interesting flavor to it for me if I'm going to drink beer. So no, I'm not like it's not going to draw me in other than to say, and look, I'm 55 years old, right? I've had a lot of beer. So
you want, yeah.
So I know the beers that I want. But if I'm 25 years old and I'm going to the 7-Eleven or the farm store or the the corner store, whatever, package store, depending on what state you live in, whatever it may be, I'm going to think twice now about Bud Light versus Miller Lite, right? Mm-hmm. Like and if I'm a hard seltzer person or a soft seltzer, whatever this stuff is, and I know it's dominated by some other kind of new name in the category, I'm not a seltzer drinker, so I can't remember, but I think like my daughter drinks the stuff. But now, you know what? I may give Bud Light a try. But 55-year-old guy who, yeah.
It felt like it was very much. I feel like it was very much
not going to make me go there.
I feel like it was very much targeted towards people that are already Bud Light drinkers, and it's just introducing them to their new product line, and that's why you had the Bud Seltzer. You know what I mean? Like you just get both at the end. So that
makes sense to me.
Yeah, it felt like they probably weren't going, after other seltzers or even other beers. It's just sort of, hey, you already drink Bud Light, try this other product as well.
Well, that's, I think, something worth mentioning. And I think there's two things I want to talk about. I want to talk about the restrictions and how they made beer commercials better, how like having rules that govern them make better commercials. But I do think that's interesting that in this commercial, so many brands that we've worked with are worried about cannibalizing their own brand. Steve Jobs once said that if you're not willing to cannibalize your own brand, somebody else will. So if you have a better product, you better release it. But yeah, they made an ad supposedly positioning their lead product against a new product. And I think somewhere in the boardrooms, they decide, let's have them push the both button at the end. I don't think the commercial hinges on that. But I think you're right. They are, I mean, essentially they're selling a lighter Bud Light, you know? Look light. It's like probably flavored by yelling the name of the flavor as they're bottling it.
So Damien, I agree with you, but I think there may be something different as well. And this kind of speaks to what I think the NFL did with expanding its audience to the female gender, right? So one person, most likely one person, is going to the store to buy the alcohol, the beverages for the party. And what you're saying to the guy who likes Bud Light is, hey, your wife, your girlfriends, her friends, whoever they might like the Bud Light seltzer. And so I haven't necessarily cannibalized my Bud Light sales. I may just have expanded my ticket per wallet, which
Your message
I think
is you're going out to buy Bud Light. You've got this internal thing. You might as well pick up some of the seltzer. Try it. You might like it. You're going to be torn, but your friends are waiting for you. So don't debate over it. Just add that to your cart.
That's right.
Try the new product. And it is interesting, though, when you go inside his brain, the people who were saying the positive things, they all had the Post Malone tattoos, but they kind of represented different sides of him. And it was females inside that control room that we're talking about. Look, it has great flavor. Look, it has, you know.
We're rich anyway.
Yeah.
And don't forget the pretzels, by the way.
Well, so here's my other question. Do you think Disney wanted to sue them? Because, I mean, essentially that was Inside Out in a beer ad, you know. It's the emotional control room of the brain. I don't think they would, but
I have no comment. I don't know. Yeah.
So I'm going to bring this other question up about alcohol ads because they've been trying to restrict the alcohol industry for a long time. Recently, they've allowed them to have billboards and things like that. But as long as I can remember, at least since the 80s, beer companies have had the best Super Bowl ads. And I say that as a non-drinker, and that judges ads not just on if they're entertaining, but do they work? Do they drive sales? And the answer is yes. Like, if you think about the last 15, 20 years, the beer commercials that can be, or the commercials that have been remembered are the What's Up and the Frogs.
One of my favorites, by the way. What's up?
You know, it's so ridiculous. And you felt like, oh yeah, I want to hang out with these people. And the message is kind of like the beer for people you kind of want to hang out with. It didn't say that overtly, but I think sometimes the restrictions on an ad, trying to do everything and be everything to all people, make an ad fall apart. Sometimes the restrictions in an advertising world make you be more creative, lean more on creativity, and that pays dividends. If you have to be more creative, people are more likely to remember the ad. If you have to be funnier, people are more likely to share the ad. If you have to be, and we always say, we did a special episode, just turned it around in a hurry on the Super Bowl ads. And we talked about the best ones and the worst ones. But the worst ones were the ones that we didn't even bring up. That might have been okay, that might have been good, but nobody remembered. Like, that's the cardinal sin in advertising, is nobody remembers your name at all. And you spend all this money. I'd rather have my ad hated than be forgotten.
Oh,
and for you,
100%.
Eric, you're in a restricted ad category as well. I mean, financial services, and then you sort of layer on crypto as well. And hopefully it's going to get better, but you're also kind of going up against all this, just being in the crypto space, sort of, there's that recent thing that happened with, the Argentine president and sort of that Libra coin thing. And it's just funny because it seems like, financial services is certainly restricted and you have to say certain things in every one of your advertisements or not say certain things. So how do you guys think about that in terms of, do you find that helps to refine your message, or do you find that to be restricting?
It's a great question. And I think the answer is that we find it helpful in part because it requires a real element of legitimacy, by which I mean, and if you want to take the situation in Argentina, that was a meme coin, right? Which is sort of like, and we saw the same thing in the U.S. on Robinhood with meme stocks, right? So GameStop and others. Yep. And I was trying not to name too many.
Yeah, we're not saying anything about the companies, but the way that they rise and fall was completely disconnected to what the companies did.
That's right. And look, we have meme stocks meme stocks. We have crypto memes, obviously in the U.S. as well. And there are companies that are created solely for the purpose of facilitating the buying and selling of crypto meme currencies, right? They're not even currencies. They're just crypto meme assets. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's not my place. Because what is happening is that groups of people are deciding to invest in these things. Now, personally, I believe there's going to be a lot of carnage. And if your timing isn't spot on, you're on the wrong end of that trade. But people have been since kind of Bitcoin came out first, and so sort of since that time, people have been debating, why do we need Bitcoin? Why do we need crypto? Right. And if you go back in time and you look at the history of money, right? Like it's a form of exchange. It's a store of value, and it's a measurement of accounts, so to speak. But really what happens, and by the way, I don't understand gold as an investment, which a lot of people are going to be like, he doesn't understand gold as an investment. Who is this guy? Like,
how do you expect to pay your pirate crew if you don't have a stash of doubloons?
The only reason, and I promise to connect the dots here in a second, but the only reason a gold coin is worth anything is because we all agree it's worth something. And so now if I say to you, hey, I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee, the music city, music capital, and I want to do business with someone in Paris, France, right? And they want, I want to transfer value, some medium of exchange to this other individual in Paris, France. Okay, well, I could send my gold coins. It might cost me more to send these gold coins than the gold coins would necessarily be worth. Or we could all agree, the same way we all agree that a gold coin has value, we can all agree that this thing called Bitcoin has value. And in a fraction of a moment, I can send Bitcoin off to this person in Paris, France. And I argue, it is a better medium of exchange. It can be just as good, if not better, store of value, and it has a measurement of accounts of units. And so my point is, so long as we all agree, and by the way, we've been agreeing since Satoshi put out his white paper, and more people have been agreeing that Bitcoin has those qualities, and we can therefore use it to replace money. And so I personally believe that Bitcoin's not going away. It will continue to grow in terms of store of value. And right now, both Bitcoin and gold are both have both been going up for various reasons, global economy purposes that I won't get into. But over time, I fully expect the value of gold to get transferred to Bitcoin, is what I think happens.
So I wanted to, really fascinating stuff, and I kind of like talking about everything, including, cryptocurrency and perceived value and all of that. But at the beginning of your statement, you kind of talked about how the regulations on advertising have helped you maintain that legitimacy, because there's a lot of coins that are popping up and disappearing overnight. You're not selling a coin yourself, but advertising plays a role in, and as I was talking with a client today about how the perception of success often leads to success, and the perception of legitimacy often helps drive legitimacy. But especially when you're in a heavily regulated industry, a lot of people are like, well, let's not advertise because it's regulated and it's hard. You've chosen to advertise because it's regulated and it's hard. You'll be one of the few trustworthy players out there that are offering this product.
Well, I think it's regulated, it's hard, but it's also important. And we don't say buy Bitcoin any more than we say buy Dogecoin. We don't say that. What we say is that we believe that this is an important asset class for the future, and you should get smart about it. And if you look at the returns, the statistical returns of Bitcoin over the last 15 years, they're outstanding, right? I think they beat every other asset class. Don't trust me? Go do your homework. Look it up. It's not hard to find, but I do think they beat every other asset class. And so what I think is important for us to do is to say, hey, this is a real asset class that's going to exist into the future, and we think is important for everyone to be aware of. And two, if you're going to invest in it, you should invest in the most tax efficient, tax advantaged way that you can, because the thing about a retirement account is it's long-term savings that should go into a long-term investment. And I happen to believe that crypto assets are long-term investments.
We've talked about, originally the perception with cryptocurrencies was, and it's interesting, even Bitcoin's latest advertisements has been about using it at a store or something like that. But in our individual conversations, you kind of said you think it's a more reliable store of value than even a functionality as an exchange of value, as an asset class rather than merely a form of exchange. I like it because less intermediaries are making money on the exchange. Thinking about how wealthy the credit card companies have come by not doing anything other than getting us to believe that this credit card carries value, and it's not theirs, it's ours and the stores, and then they just take a piece by giving us a piece of plastic that we can trust.
No, that's right. You should. It's so interesting. There's a book written in 2011 called Debt by a guy named David Graeber. Is Graeber, and it's kind of the history. The book's called Debt, but it's kind of like the history of money over the last 5,000 years. And what most of us learn is that there's barter, and then there's money, and then there's credit. And actually, it's all reversed. It was credit first, and then there was money. And barter almost never actually exists. And if you think about it for more than 2 seconds, you're like, yeah, barter's really hard. Like, you have shoes, you want grapefruits. The guy selling the grapefruits wants, I don't know what, but it's probably not your shoes, and you're not the same size, right? But it's called a double coincidence of wants. It's really hard, right? And so if you think about, and again, I think it comes back to we all agree. But what's really interesting is if you go back in time and you think about kings, they all wanted to own the gold and silver mines. And so you really have to ask, like, okay, if they own the gold and silver mines, why did they then make coins and distribute those coins to the people in order to just take it all back in taxes? Why not just hold on to it in the first place, right? And the answer is because you need someone willing to feed your army when your army's out there in the hinterlands. And I'm not going to send all these people in provisions to do it because that might be larger than my army. But if I give the people gold coins or coins of any,
Yeah, they've exchanged for goods and services before. They're like, oh, this has durable value. Yeah.
Exactly. And one of the really interesting stories in this book, by the way, is, and I can't remember which king it was, but it was like, let's just call him Henry the Second. Bankers lent Henry II. I'm making up Henry II, but I think it was a Henry, like $1.2 million. Yeah, it was King of England. Okay, $1.2 million. And in exchange, these bankers got the exclusive right to distribute notes to the people of England on the same $1.2 million that they lent to the king, and the king was paying them interest. So they lend $1.2 million to the king, and then they get to print $1.2 million of notes, which they can then lend to the people of England.
Interesting in two ways, because the paper note is interesting because it is just easier to transfer than a wagon full of gold.
Exactly.
It's and electronic exchanges. But I think to bring this back to advertising, the king also, money is kind of the first advertising platform that says my kingdom is valid and we have legitimacy. Because my face is on the coin.
The Bank of England right there on the note.
My face is on the coin that you spend, therefore we're powerful. And as much as you can say about the U.S. military, the fact that more and more nations are using the U.S. dollar to pin their currency to is saying like, oh, well, we trust them because they're pinning their currency to us. And this idea of advertising and currency is really based around trust, you know?
That's right.
And we're trying to get people to trust these systems, and hopefully we're picking good systems. But it's interesting as advertising in the crypto space has occurred, people that have taken giant spends, we've almost become more resistant to them. We want to see people that we're seeing regular messaging from, that we're like, okay, they're still around, they're still doing it, they're still doing what they're saying they're going to do. But currency is also just another form of advertising. You're advertising for the realm, you're creating trust in a system and a perceived set of values and sharing that with people.
No, I think that's right. And the other thing that we have to remember is that about every 100 to 200 years, the agreed upon medium of exchange, let's call it, changes. And, you know, I think we're in the process of that transition from paper notes, from dollars, to cryptocurrencies. And I think it's a really interesting time. I think it's very hard to wrap your head around. I think it's very hard for most people to wrap their head around it. They're not alone, and it's not without some reading and understanding of history to comprehend that this whole thing now is based on trust. And because you and I say it is so.
I think crypto is cryptic. It's difficult to understand, but I think what people do understand is digital transactions.
Yes.
What they don't understand is the people that are creating the digital platforms for transactions are making a huge amount by holding your money for you. Any one point, if you open your Venmo account, most people have between $50 to $400 there. Venmo's making a ton of money on interest, and they're not paying you any of it, right?
That's right.
And so
Starbucks, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
But Starbucks is like the largest bank that no one knows is a bank.
ADP, the payroll company. I think they
there
make
you
more
go.
money on
ADP, enormous.
Yeah. I think they make more money on that than the services division where they're charging businesses for payroll.
Just by holding the money. And I think our job as consumers is to try to take more control of that back for ourselves. And I think for me, that's interesting about crypto, that we have a chance to remove more of the middlemen. The people that we're making wealthy aren't offering a service other than, here, let me hold your money for you. And the gains that you can make in whether it's crypto or real estate investing, the people that control the interactions make a lot of the money, and then the government takes a huge bite when you're the one that has taken the risk. You've taken the risk, invested in something, it's grown in value, and if that could be up to 20% in capital gains that you can pay them. But I think it's a fascinating thing to think about as the way we perceive value, the way we perceive trust, the way things hold value is deeply related to advertising and communicating value. And sometimes just simply seeing a brand out there in the wild enough makes you think like, oh, they must be doing well. There's a new appliance company that's on my radar now called Midea. I don't know if you've seen their ads, but to launch a new appliance company is like a behemoth of an endeavor. And they didn't start with one. They're like, we make all of these things. And like, none of them seems to be new to me. And I'm like, oh, these guys are going to take like 5 years before they can make any money because they're going to need to be in stores. They're either going to need to be the cheapest product or the most expensive product or have a feature that nobody else does. But I don't think they do. But to go up against the GEs of the world and the Samsungs of the world, they are not just selling a product. They have to sell trust because there's a lot of people in the appliance world battling for your dollars. And really what I want is something that I can trust to not break down in 3 years, to clean my food or keep my food cold or whatever. And, they're selling trust. And their approach to do it is like, let's saturate the airways with advertisements for right now so that everybody sees it so much that they think we've been around for decades when I've never heard of them until a month or two ago.
Yeah. If you're going to enter a category that has been around for as long as appliances have, you really do have to saturate the market, or you create a category that hasn't existed before. And I'll take athletic brewing as one example, where athletic brewing has essentially, jumped into the alcohol-free beer category and they didn't create it. Like, I can't remember the name of the alcohol-free beer that's been around for a long time.
Near beer, they probably what was that? O'Doul's was, they were the major,
O'Doul's.
O'Doul's and Near Beer.
But athletic took the spin of athletes and sports who, embrace wellness, like 0% beer. And by the way, like Heineken Zero, if you ask me, best alcohol-free beer on the market. But nobody's talking about Heineken Zero. Everybody's talking about athletic. And, they've done a hell of a job.
A single person talk about the quality of liquid death water. Like, is their water taste any better than anybody else's water? Is it
It
more
does not,
pure,
but the
or
can is so cool, right?
buying 100% packaging, 100% advertising? And I don't know if that's even as an advertiser, I don't know if that's entirely a good thing. As great a campaign as they are, I still want to feel like there's value that I'm getting in addition to cool. Because a lot of people try, for every liquid death, there's 100 people that try to just sell cool, and they're just all sizzle and no steak.
But you know what I think says doubly impressive about what Liquid Death has done? Is that they're getting you to buy water in a can. I hate drinking water out of a can. Like, I think it's terrible. It's just a bad experience. Yet you go to any sort of entertainment venue, concert venue, whatever, and you want water, you get Liquid Death, water in a can. I mean, like, I want it in a glass or a bottle. Plastic, whatever. I know plastic's bad for the world, but
I heard was the origins of the brand was at athletic events that, like, extreme athletes that are on motorcycles and stuff, they're like, they don't want to be drinking Red Bull despite all the Red Bull dollars behind it. They really just want water.
yeah.
And they want to have something cool to be drinking. And Kirkland, although Kirkland is increasingly become an ironically cool brand, but that's not going to cut it, And
Right.
they want to have something cool, and people buy it so they can carry it. And I always I started this when I was working with a large book publisher, to keep in mind that there are 3 usages for books, or 3 reasons why people buy them. And we usually just focus on one of them. And they buy books to read them, to give them, or to have them. And the having of something is a big value in a brand, that I carry this product that says something about me. There's a bookshelf in my house that I have certain books on because it says something about me. There's certain cars, certain clothing that I wear because it says something about me. And I think that is the value of brand for Liquid Death. It's like, yes, I have water. They were originally launched with this environmental messaging about water in a can. And now they've just abandoned it. Now they're just like, this is cooler water, and we're going to do crazy stuff. And the value we're going to offer you is our brand is going to be wildly entertaining, and you can't wait to see what we do next. But we had the stat the other day that they sell mostly in retail now, but through their D2C channel, they sell more in merch than in product off their website. People buying the crazy
their
stuff.
artwork is incredible. Liquid Death artwork is incredible. I believe it.
Well, I think we have to wrap up today, but thank you for joining us, Eric. Been a fascinating discussion about value, trust, advertising, and I'm just really excited to get my tax return so I can hit my IRA maximums in Alto IRA so I can direct a little bit of it myself. And thank you for joining us. For those that are interested, check out the Totally Advertising podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, Spotify Video, and YouTube coming soon. And we'll check you guys next week on the Totally Advertising podcast.
Totally rad. It's totally rad.
Join us every week right here on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, or wherever you listen to stuff for your pods.